We're here to talk about native plants. So I had created a whole PowerPoint that I showed to a garden club about this, and now I can't find it. So these are my notes that I was able to remember to quickly type up today to show you guys. I am so sorry I don't have the real thing, but this is good, and I still have it all in my head, so we're okay. So first, let's start with the definition of native plants. Native plants are indigenous terrestrial and aquatic species that have evolved and occur naturally in a particular region, ecosystem, and habitat. Species native to North America are generally recognized as those occurring on the continent prior to European settlement, because as soon as the Europeans got here, they were bringing stuff with them. So if we're going to truly consider it native, it needs to be pre that date. But then there is a lot of discussion about whether you do straight species or cultivars, or if cultivars are allowed if you're considering your yard a native plant haven.
The straight species would be like
just truly
native, nothing.
Yeah, so on page 2 we get into this, and so I gave you guys the website address of the National Wildlife Foundation. They have a great article about, straight species versus cultivars and even nativars. So like if it's truly a native straight species, but then it's just a mutation of that rather than a cross-pollination of something, does that count more than a cross-pollination? So the example I give is Echinacea purpurea, just straight purple cone-flower. And then there's Echinacea purpurea Cheyenne Spirit, which is still Echinacea purpurea, but it's a seedling strain of Echinacea purpurea that has reds, yellows, oranges, pinks, whites, all in the mix. So it's a bigger group of Echinacea purpurea, but are we going to consider that native, or is it out because now it's a cultivar? We're done with that. That's not okay anymore. And then there's Echinacea hot papaya, which is a double flowered one and has had a lot of breeding into it. And I would say that's no longer native. I love them and I have planted them in my yard, but it's a double flower. So it's much more difficult, almost impossible for the insects and even hummingbirds to get in between all those petals and get to the nectar. So in my mind, that's too far down the line, doesn't count anymore if we're talking about planting natives. And there's a lot of discussion about the nutritional value of the nectar and pollen that's collected from straight species versus cultivars. And especially like as the breeding gets down the line, it's got almost no nutritional value, or some of them are like the sterile plants may not have pollen in the flowers, and then it's not really helpful to anybody that's collecting those plants. So then back to the first page, how native is native? So, and to ask that a different way, what level of nativeness are you willing to accept for your garden? And that is, are you going to be straight species only in your garden and have the most nutritional value for the native bees and native wasps, or are you going to allow some cultivars, maybe a few Japanese plants, all the different wonderful wild things that there are out there in the world? For me personally, I've decided to plant anything and everything. There is part of that decision may come into who are you trying to feed. If you're only concerned about native bees and wasps, then I would encourage you to go more straight species, maybe a few cultivars, but have the best nutritional value for them. But then you have to do the whole package. They need a different habitat than like a European honeybee would. So you want to research that and try to provide that as well. They typically like ground dwellings, and they need some cleared, like almost forced floor to burrow into rather than like a hotel. A lot of insects don't actually use the hotels that we love to hang up, and some of them do. And if I'm making blanket statements here, there's always exceptions to the rule. There's always going to be some crossover. But depending on, going back to what I was talking about, depending on who you're trying to feed, I would use that to gauge your level of nativeness that you use in your yard and accept in your yard. Because European honeybees are not necessarily going to recognize our native plants. They'll visit them, they're okay with it. But in my yard, I see them on the catmint and the salvias way more often than I see them on, an ironweed or an echinacea or something like that. They're more drawn to the things that they recognize as being a food source from Europe. And then lastly, on the third page, I do give you guys some trusted resources. To check and see if a plant is native, I would use the USDA.gov website as a reference to see where a plant is native to. It'll show you if it's actually native or if it's been introduced to the area. They've got great maps and they're all color coded. We are a good resource. We will always be able to help you. And then Prairie Moon Nursery, that's one of my favorites. They do straight species seeds and small plug plants. Prairie Nursery is another good one. They're in Wisconsin. But I have just, for whatever reason, been more drawn to Prairie Moon Nursery online. And they also use the USDA map to show on each of their seeds where the plant's native. They also have great search things. So you can narrow it down. Like, I have part shade, a very wet area, and I want red flowers, and they'll show you exactly what'll work in that spot. So you can get really specific with them. And then on the very last page, another great reason to plant native plants is their root systems go much, much deeper than our regular ornamental shrubs. And over here on the far left, this little blotch on the graph is turf grass. So if you mow your turf grass to 3 inches, you get about 3 inches of roots underneath. And all of these other native plants that are shown have much deeper, more extensive root systems. So they're going to help with erosion control. They're going to be much more, they're going to seek out that groundwater source rather than just waiting for some surface water. So they'll be much hardier and better established for the summer. A lot of native plants are well adapted to drought seasons. So they're going to handle it and go through it a lot better than some of our other European favorites and Japanese favorites. So the root systems and just their hardiness overall is a great reason to pick a native plant for your yard. Yes?
Are most grasses really do this? You referenced the fact, I think you said the root system is as deep as the top.
Mm-hmm.
The roots respond to what's above it, right?
It does.
Most grasses that we put on your yard, do they do the same thing?
Well, the turf grasses. Oh, yes. Okay, so you're asking if the grass, if most grasses have just a shallow root system. This is representing a turf lawn type grass. So any of the lawn grasses, Bermuda, zoysia, fescue, any of those, typically whatever you mow the height to is about how much they have in a root system underneath the ground. Yeah, right. Yeah, so the higher you cut, the deeper roots you have. But in a drought situation, that can still get you in trouble because it's still only 3 or 4 inches deep, and that can suffer faster than a native plant. So that's one reason there's been a big push to have more native meadow yards and mow less, grow more wildflowers, not only to feed the bees and things, but so you have better erosion control. And the roots also will filter out a lot of toxins in the soil. So whatever comes down in the rainwater, they're collecting some of that carbon and bad stuff and keeping it out of the groundwater supply once it gets down to that level. So now let's move on to plants. This is my favorite part, and this is where I do the best.
One more question.
Absolutely.
About the straight species versus the cultivars.
Sure.
So, like you mentioned something like the Cheyenne spirit. Is that a natural mutation of the just a straight species Echinacea purpura?
Yes. So
versus like artificial.
right. So going back to that, the question was about straight species moving on to cultivars and further down the line. So there's the straight species of the plant. Cheyenne spirit is a mutation. So they just found some seedlings that came up and were those colors. There was no breeding by humans involved on that one. But like for ones like a lot of the proven winners, the hot papaya, all the doubles, those sort of things, there has been human intervention and they're breeding for specific traits. So they're doing cross pollination and getting those seeds, growing those out to look for certain attributes. They cull what they don't like. This one's too yellow, don't like that. They throw that one away. You know, this one's double. Okay, we're looking for double, keep that one. And they keep breeding like that until they get what they want. But every time they do that cross pollination and breeding, they're getting further away from the native. And research is now showing that they're losing nutritional value as they get further down that line.
So both cases would be called a cultivar?
Like
in terms of just like if we're looking for things,
we yeah.
have a good sense of whether it's just sort of a natural mutation versus...
Yeah, you would have to talk to an expert. Like one of us here would probably know or be able to find out for you. Or I would recommend like a college or university website for information like that. Some of them will show the lineage of the plants. But yeah, just looking at the tags in the store, they're all going to be in a single quote at the end of the thing. Now, if there is no species listed, then you can just say that's like pretty far down the line because they probably crossed different species. So now it's either an X or they just don't list a species anymore because it's two different ones combined together. So like in my yard, I have Echinacea tennesseeensis next to Echinacea purpurea magnus, and they've crossed. So now it's an interesting hybrid, but it's no longer either one of those species. It's something completely new and different. And I don't, in my heart, I feel like that still got some nutritional value because it's two good old fashioned plants. So I'm not going to rip it out, but the bees and things may not like it as much, not visit it as much because maybe it doesn't have as great of nutritional value as the originals. So, did that answer the question? Okay. Okay. Where should we start? Okay, these are plants from my yard that I cut. These are some of my favorite natives that are looking good right now. We've got Rudbeckia triloba coming up. This is the bottlebrush buckeye. That's the seed heads from that one. Rattlesnake master. I think it's Euringium. There's a couple that I get confused on there. And then the pycnanthemum, the mountain mint, is a favorite of mine. That one seems to be a huge pollinator attractor. All the butterflies, all the wasps love that one. Echinacea magnus. This is a sweet little one that I've gotten from that Prairie Moon Nursery. Whenever you buy seed packs, they'll send you a free seed pack. And this is partridge pea. Unfortunately, it got a little dry, I guess, since I cut it this morning. But it has really pretty yellow flowers with a little red center. And the foliage looks like a mimosa. But it only ever gets about knee high. And the pollinators flock to it. They absolutely love it. And And then we've got a northwind switchgrass, the panicum. This is another mountain mint. This is one called Smoky Mountain Mint. It's a new cultivar, but it's like I said, I plant everything, but it's got like kind of burgundy leaves towards the base, and then more silvery as it moves up towards the flowers. So that one's been really pretty this year. Baptisia foliage, and then my
Insects love that Smoky Mountain Mint.
yeah, they do. This is the hardy ageratum, or it's a eupatorium, and I can't remember the species name. It starts with a C, but this one's been excellent, and it grows along my driveway in a pretty dry, shaded area, so I've been enjoying that one. And then one of my favorite shrubs is this Elysium. This is woodland ruby. This likes partial shade, and it can actually handle pretty wet feet. So I've got a couple of like natural seepy spring areas in my yard, and I've got that planted around them. It's the flowers very pretty, but it smells like pond water. But then the leaves, if you break them, they smell like licorice. And I'll pass that around if you want to take a whiff. So,
How many years before this thing flowers?
should bloom fairly young.
We planted one of these in our yard years ago. Just didn't make it. Maybe not the right location.
Okay. Pass it through. So in saying that it smells a little odd, the flower smells like pond water to me. I probably wouldn't put it by my front or back door, but I would definitely use it in the yard.
The smell the leaves makes up for it.
Yeah, it does. When you're pruning it, like if you ever shape it up, oh,
Like
wonderful.
fish tank.
Yeah.
Watering it.
So this is the Elysium woodland ruby as a shrub. So it's got a nice loose habit. It is evergreen. During the winter, when it gets really cold at night, the leaves collapse and it looks dead, and you will absolutely freak out and worry about it. But by afternoon, it pops back up and everything's fine.
Shade or sun?
Mostly shade. Probably in wet feet situations, it could handle more sun, but typically it's going to want some shade during the day.
How big is it?
We have one planted out in our front parking lot that's at least as tall as me, so almost 6 feet and about 5 to 6 feet wide. So large, and it's pretty dense once it gets that large, so it could even be a screening shrub if you didn't need a real tall screen.
And Megan, as far as erosion control,
Mhm.
would that be a decent option for shade?
It would definitely help, yes. It's going to have a nice hardy root system, so it should definitely help with erosion control. Okay, now let's talk about this grass. This is the little blue stem grass. This one in particular is called Standing Ovation. So here we are with another cultivar. You can find, and we can find and bring in for you, the straight species of the little blue stem. But Standing Ovation is one of the improvements where it's got really beautiful blue-green foliage spring and summer, and then it turns, as the night temperatures get colder in the fall, it turns burgundy throughout the whole plant, and it's much more sturdy and upright than some of the other cultivars, and even the straight species. It's a little more upright than that one. So that one is a favorite of mine. All of these are my favorites. I love all of them. They're all beautiful, so you're going to hear that a lot. I'm really sorry, but I'm not great with adjectives.
Is that one sun or shade?
This one's full sun, at least 8 hours, and it gets about 4 feet tall, so this is about max height on it, and it'll clump out about 2 to 3 feet wide. And then we didn't have the best example of it, but this is the hardy ageratum, and you can see this one would be really good for erosion control because if I can, this one I've got in part sun along my driveway. I think it could take some sun. Maybe I'm not going to get it out, but anyways, it's coming up all throughout the pot, so it's going to spread by runners underground, and almost like something in the mint family. It's not that aggressive, but it will fill out an area, so give it plenty of room. But the stunning blue purple color in the late summer is just kind of refreshing when everything else is starting to look a little pale. This one is the hardy ageratum. It's Eupatorium colestrum. Colestinum. I'll leave it over here. Mm-hmm. And let's see. Oh, the coral bells, heucheras. There are several species of coral bell that are actually native to the southeastern USA. This is one of the cultivars. It's called Autumn Bride. Gets really large, beautifully green leaves, like kind of a limey green leaf. It's not so dark, but it is Autumn Bride because it blooms in the late summer and puts out these really pretty white flowers that just kind of gently turn green and stay on for a very long time. Birds will even pick the seeds out of this one, and so that's nice to watch the little goldfinches sit on them. There are couple other types as well. I think the Heuchera villosa, which a lot of them have like some Heuchera villosa blood in them. So we're getting into that like halfway native, but not really native territory. But there are some very beautiful ones that some folks would consider native.
What's the one that was discovered on the Harpeth?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay. We had it last year.
You stumped me.
Sorry.
And there's another one that we have outside right now called Dale's Strain. That's a Heuchera americana. It's a darker green leaf with kind of a silver overlay on the leaf. It's very pretty. Like some of the purple ones will have a little bit of silver on top. This one has green with the silver. And that one's another great native variety for us. Blanket flower. Now this is taking that how native is native question in a different direction, not necessarily cultivars and all that, but it's native to coastal areas, but it does very well here in the heat and drought times of our summer. So are we going to stay like regionally native, or is anywhere in the US native okay with us? So that's something else to consider as you're planting. But these, if you go out to some of the sand dunes in North Carolina and even Alabama, these are just all dotted along the sand dunes, and it's absolutely beautiful. So that would be, not exactly native right here, but it is native to the southeast, so I think it counts. But they perform so well in our hot, dry summers. They hold up very well and keep blooming beautifully. So we definitely want to use that one. The yuccas, a lot of people don't like the yuccas because they're a little bit too southwest looking, and they're definitely prickly. Ow. Just stabbed myself. Anyways, so, a lot of people are adverse to this look in their yard, but these are native to North and South Carolina and probably throughout Alabama as well. Even here in Tennessee, the green varieties I've seen just native popping up along the roadsides in Fairview. This one is called Color Guard, and it's just a Yucca filamentosa. So it's got that, beautiful yellow stripe down the middle, and creates a lot of contrast and interest. During the winter, this is one of our perennials that stays evergreen. There's not a whole lot of them that do, especially in the sun. So this we can even use in containers with some of our pansies and things like that, just to give us some interest throughout the winter, because they'll even turn a little bit red during the winter to give some extra color. This grass is Carex pennsylvanica. This particular one is a little bit tall, but I've seen these used as a lawn alternative in yards for shadier areas. I always thought it would be a little bit shorter as a lawn alternative. And it may just be that these were grown close together, which forced them more upright. It may, get shorter as it continues growing in the yard. But this is an excellent sedge, and it's just a nice deep green. It's evergreen, and like I said, a lot of people are starting to use this as a lawn alternative, so they don't have to do as much mowing. And it's a nice soft look. This is our native Pachysandra. I have seen this in Montgomery Bell Park, just growing in the woodlands there. It goes dormant through the winter, so it will die back to the ground. And then in the early spring, it sends up these weird little spikes of white flowers, and then the leaves emerge after that. But this will also have kind of a silvery overlay and some red edges on it. So lots of interest there, and a great little ground cover if you want a native alternative to some of the more traditional ground covers. And this is the mountain mint that I was showing you in my bouquet over there. And this one just has an amazing smell. Not used actually herbally, I don't believe, but smells so good. And when you cut it and bring it in the house, yeah, no.
It's so pretty and cut flowers.
Yeah.
As a greenery where it gets silver, it's like my favorite thing to mix with like
and like I said earlier, draws all of the pollinators. I've seen so many different types of bees, wasps, butterflies on these in my yard. I keep planting them, even though they are in the mint family, so they can also take up quite a bit of room. It's been an excellent addition to that one. Either. I've got some along my driveway that's pretty shady. It only gets like an hour or two of midday sun. And then I've got some by my creek that get all day sun, and they're fine. Both of them do equally as well. Amsonia is always a crowd pleaser. We've got some planted on the corner out here of our parking lot, and they bloom at a short height in the spring, and then they get much taller. They get up to 4 feet tall and 3 to 4 feet wide. And they will turn like this golden amber color in the fall before they die back for the winter. And it's just, they put on the best show in the garden. And everybody always stops and asks us what it is, because it looks like a grass. It's got the movement and the fine texture of a grass, but it's actually a really deep-rooted taproot perennial. Not, the clump gets larger, but it doesn't just pop up other place. Yeah, that one out there is 3 of them that were planted about 20 years ago. And then the Echinacea tennesseeensis. So this is about as local as you can get with a native plant. These are, I think, what's the park? Cedars of Lebanon, I think, is where they're like most concentrated at. But luckily, some of our growers around here have started producing them so that we can all have them in our yards and keep the line going. But very local, very native, excellent source for nectar for the bees and butterflies, but then also the goldfinches love to sit and pick out the seeds in the fall. So I never deadhead my coneflowers for that reason. Yeah, it's much more strappy than the Echinacea purpureas. So then when mine hybridized at home, the new foliage on the new plant is a little bit wider, but not as rounded as the Echinacea purpurea. It's very interesting. Yeah, right. And that's the edge of the table. This is another eupatorium. This is the Joe Pye weed. This one's called Phantom. So a new shorter variety, better suited for some of our smaller yards that we're all moving into. This one only gets about 4.5 feet tall and a few feet wide. Still very popular with the insects, at least here it is. But if you have room for the old-fashioned taller one, I think that one might be a little more beneficial. But either way, I think you're getting a great flower, and I think these would dry really well too if you wanted to do some drying. This one's as much sun as possible. It can handle some shade, but it starts getting a little floppy if it's in too much shade. You don't like my barrier? Oh, okay.
That'd be a dangerous policy.
Okay. All right. So now I've done a lot of sun stuff and I've got more to go, but let's talk about a few shade things. This is the lobelia, the cardinal flower. Now we do get and can get just a straight species of lobelia cardinalis, but this is a new one called Vulcan Red. It was the only thing available at the time, so got it. But this has gorgeous like red stems and the little bit of tinge of darkness on the leaves. So that's nice to add to the garden to just add some dramatics before the red flowers come out. But hugely popular with hummingbirds and butterflies. And then my favorite lobelia is the Lobelia syphilitica. This tag is showing it fairly lavender, and I have some along my creek that are this color, but I have others that are almost electric blue. They are very, very blue. They're so pretty, and they always bloom in late August, early September, so it's nice to have fresh new color at that time of the year. Another good one that blooms alongside the lobelias is the turtlehead. This is a straight species. This is glabra. So it's going to have white flowers with just a little pink tinge on them. We will also be getting one called Hot Lips that is a bright pink. And there's another one called Tiny Tortuga, which is a dwarf hot pink variety. But, you know, so there again, you have the choice to decide if you have room for the taller straight species. This is going to get 4 to 5 feet tall and be a little bit more stringy and not as full with the pretty white flowers with the pink edge. Or if you have a smaller yard or a smaller space that you're trying to fill, you could go with a cultivar and get that more compact, brighter color to fill out your native garden. What else do I have for shade? One of the shrubs that we have for shade is the Annabelle hydrangea. Any of the hydrangea arborescens are considered native. So then again, we're talking about whether you want to try to find straight hydrangea arborescens or if Annabelle's okay. And then as you get down the line into some of the proven winners and stuff, it feels like there's a lot more breeding. So maybe not quite as native, but still popular with the insects. And then the native azaleas are always so gorgeous in the early spring. This one is called Frederick Douglass. It was a pale yellow pinkish color. They do lose their leaves in the winter, but then the show is, I think, even a little bit more stunning because the color just pops out of nowhere and they're there for us to enjoy. Butterflies like this one, it's a little early for hummingbirds, but sometimes you'll catch one. And the leaves turn a nice golden yellow before falling off in the fall. So you get a little bit of interest at the end of the season as well. And typically I've found that the native hydrangeas can take a little bit more water than the evergreen azaleas. Yeah, not hydrangeas, azaleas. They can handle a little bit, they still don't like wet feet, but they seem to be able to handle more moisture in the soil than some of the evergreen ones. They don't like it at all. Let's see. Then we've got the oak leaf hydrangea. This is a newer cultivar called Munchkin. It only gets 2 to 3 feet tall. The old-fashioned, closer to straight species ones are going to get 12 feet tall, 15 feet tall. So they can range wildly in size just depending on what you pick out and what you need for your yard. And then over here on this side, we've got this grass. This is a panicum or a switchgrass. That one is called Shenandoah. It's also got pretty blue-green foliage in the spring that turns burgundy as the night temps drop, which I love in the grasses because they're not always the prettiest things, and sometimes people can be a little adverse to using grasses in their yard, but they really do get a lot of range and texture from them. Then down here, I've got a goldenrod. Unfortunately, mine weren't blooming at home, so I wasn't able to bring some goldenrod in. This is a cultivar. This is called golden fleece, and the flowers are much more fleecy. They're showier and they look like little bundles of fleece rather than just the hanging bells that you'll sometimes, and they're tiny bells, so don't yell at me for saying bells, but they give you so much color in the fall, and they're really a very good dried flower, and a cut flower as well. And then this little guy down here, he was new to me this year. This is prunella, or self heal is the common name. This is a straight species that we have, but I took one home and planted it, and it gets little purple flowers. You can see here on the cover. They almost look like ajuga flowers, but you can make a tea out of them. Is that right?
Medicinal purposes.
Yeah. And it's, what does it do?
It's supposed to be immune strengthening.
Okay.
And mine is just now blooming. It was blooming, then I transplanted it, went through a little shock, and now it's coming back in full bloom. So I'm going to be doing some more research on it. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
But with a name like self heal, it heals everything.
The way it's
But
spread just in 2
yeah.
months is so impressive to me.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. I've put some in a flower bed that I was tired of the mulch constantly washing out, and this has been an excellent little group ground cover for me. And then there are lots of trees that are native. You know, our native tulip poplar, dogwoods, redbuds, maples. Some of the maples are native, but this is one of my favorites. This is Taxodium ascendens, or pond cypress. It's in that bald cypress family. So the leaves, again, on this, like some of the other things, they're going to turn a beautiful golden amber color before they fall off in the fall. And I just love how fine of a texture it is. It's when you see it, especially planted near a pond or a wet spot, it just is gorgeous. I mean, there's no other way to really look at it. It's just so gentle and soft and graceful. Yeah, it's a beautiful tree.
How big will
That one is a large tree, so it's going to get 40, 50 feet tall, and fairly wide. So that one would need a decent sized yard to really be happy. And then tucked back here, I've got another shrub that I really like. This is a physocarpus. Now, some of the straight species physocarpus, I think opulifolius, is a green. It's got larger leaves, and it's a good host plant for one of the butterflies in this area. I haven't noticed any caterpillars on the colorful physocarpus. I think the butterflies might be a little wary of that, you know, because color in nature sometimes is a warning. So they may think it's a bad thing, but I really enjoy the burgundy foliage of this, and being able to add that color into the garden and not just have, you know, a green garden is gorgeous and can be very diverse and well done, but adding pops of color, especially in foliage, really helps. But the butterflies and bees and everybody still like the flowers on this one. It gets little balls of clusters of white flowers on the stem ends, so it'll get covered in the spring with little flowers. And that's one of the more dwarf varieties. There's lots of varieties of physocarpus on the market now. There's even some yellow foliaged ones. This is called Little Joker. It only gets about 2 to 3 feet tall and wide, but there's ginger wine and summer wine. There's lots of wine ones. And then there's like lemon candy that get larger, more in the 5 to 6 foot range. So depending on your space and needs, there are lots of different options there. And then this one is kind of a tricky one. This is one that is only really half native. It's a species cross, so half native, half not exactly native. But I love the hibiscus. I mean, you can't beat that flower. And the bees and butterflies still love it. They visit it every day. And like a true hibiscus, the flowers only last one day. But this is perennial. It'll take wet feet, it'll take dry feet. It grows in full sun to partial shade. It will take such a range of conditions that I can't not have it in my garden. And the colors are always strong and punchy and offer so much to the texture and landscape that, you know, it's never been a miss for me. I always have to have these. And they come in a range of colors from deep, deep reds to pure whites to white with a red center, different shades of pink. This one in particular is called Watermelon Ruffles. They're trying to go for like a coral color with this one, and they're almost hit the mark. I can't wait for the next iteration that is truly coral. That's what I want.
And it gets sizable.
Yeah, yeah. Most of them get 3 to 4 feet tall and wide, and the happier they are, they could get even larger. And then this is Emerald Arborvitae. I bet most of you wouldn't consider arborvitaes as native plants, but it's native to the Pacific Northwest. So not necessarily here, and kind of that northern border. So like even I think up in Maine, they're native. So they're again U.S. native, not necessarily regional native, but an excellent choice for screening. It's a functional plant, but if you're going for a native yard, this is your function. A lot of the junipers are also native. There's a lot of them in the Juniperus virginiana species. And there again, you're going to get into cultivars, especially to get the more narrow and shorter varieties. But they're also great natives, and they would be more native to this region. And I think of them as more ornamental and pretty. This is just functional. So sometimes you have to have function. No, the arborvitaes and the junipers really, if they get into much shade, they start thinning out and browning out. So I would put them in as much sun as possible, no less than 6 or 7 hours. And really that would need to be the strong afternoon sun. But then there are options. There's the Carolina cherry laurel. It's not a conifer, it would be a broadleaf, but it would be a larger screening plant for a more shaded situation that is a native plant. And that's all my plants. So I'll open it up to questions, you guys.
So is that the one that you call the Physocarpus? Is
Yes.
that also called like a ninebark?
It is, yeah. So Physocarpus is the genus name for it, but ninebark is the common name, and that comes from the exfoliating bark that they have. As they get larger and the stems get thicker, the bark will exfoliate almost like a crepe myrtle. And I guess they saw up to 9 layers of bark, and that's where ninebark came from.
Is Weigelia
Mm-mm.
okay? Not native. No.
I don't think so.
All right.
Yeah, I've been. I was even going to bring him one of the agastache this morning, because there are some agastache that are truly native, but the Blue Fortune that we have, I did some research on it, and it was bred in the Netherlands, and it was a cross species thing. So I was like, oh man, I guess I could have brought it in, but it's yeah.
It's reseeded white.
Oh, I like that.
Ninebark need a lot of sun.
They do. They would prefer full sun. I've seen them in semi-shade, but they start getting thin and a more leggy, open look. So as much sun as possible. But I don't know if I mentioned this or not earlier, but they can handle wet feet. So if you have like a leaky spigot or a low spot in the yard, this would be an excellent plant to use around that area. Mm-hmm, they do.
Don't fix the spigot, just put a ninebark in there.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't need a plumber, you just need a plant.
The lobelia that you said you had that's really blue,
Mm-hmm.
is that considered native?
It is. Yeah, that one's naturally occurring. I didn't even plant it. It just is there. So I got very lucky with my creek and all the things that are along it.
I gotta get specific.
Okay,
So,
let's do it.
we are dealing with an area where the water. Paul is my neighbor, so she
Oh, okay.
understands. Water comes through a couple of times a year with a lot of force.
Yeah.
And really digs out anything, including rock, that we have put there.
Okay.
So we're looking. I'm thinking like a mixture of things in that area. It's also full shade.
Yeah.
Which I'm thinking is tricky, but maybe not.
Right.
But what would you suggest for like a variety of things that could grow quickly, grow effectively, and or hang on to some soil?
So I would use the Elysium, the woodland ruby. That would be one of my first choices. I would also recommend, and I would recommend doing it in stages. I would start with some shrubs and maybe a tree and start getting those established. And then later you can add in like some of the lobelia and things to decorate it and make it prettier as the water starts slowing down, moving through that area. But also there's a plant called river cane. It's a native bamboo that we have in this area, and it is not as aggressive as the Asian varieties, but it is aggressive. I have some in my yard. I would be happy to dig some up and bring it to you.
It's right next to my shade bed. Can't get in there.
Okay, well, you might want to put like some kind of barrier,
yeah,
over there. It's naturally occurring on our property, and it's right down by the creek, but it has really helped with erosion control on the edge of the creek, and it's kind of in a swale area where water flows. So
this is a weird thing. I think it goes completely dry.
Right.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
But then,
and that's the river cane is great for that, and the Elysium. Both of those would be excellent for that situation because they can handle a wet feet, but they don't need it. So when it's dry, that's okay too. But they will, and they're going to grow deeper and seek out that groundwater because they're native. They're not just like trying to create surface roots. You want them, and deep watering, which we'll do another video on later, always helps any plant establish deeper roots and get them more into the soil to get down where that moisture is just naturally occurring.
Did you say Elysium can grow in the shade?
It can, yeah. Yeah, I've got some planted in like a high canopy area that only gets dappled light all day, never direct sun, and it does well.
Does milton laurel do well around here?
It's been hit or miss for me. I've seen some do fine and then others just not do well. And I think it's about soil composition and making sure that it's very well drained. But I can't tell you the exact sweet spot on what would be perfect for them.
I'll wait on that.
Okay.
I mean, normal for I had some and it grew well, but it was so bug eaten. I mean, it had holes all over the leaves.
Yeah.
And I ended up pulling it up because it just always looked draggled.
Yeah.
But it was healthy, but it would just have holes all over the leaves.
Yeah, and I mean, especially in this area, we have so many insects that attack our plants, and fungal problems, especially this year, have seemed rampant because we've had such a cool spring season, but with a lot of humidity, especially at night. We've seen more fungal problems than I think we ever have here in the nursery, and just folks coming in to ask questions about it. So there again, these are very well acclimated to the area and the conditions, and should hold up better than some of our more tender, not native plants.
Did you say there were certain ones that can stand like full sun and be along
a creek?
Not so much like a permanent creek.
Okay.
A creek that comes torrenting through.
Right.
Heavy rainstorm.
Yeah. So I would say that like the turtle head and the lobelias should do fine in those conditions, because I've got some in my yard further away from the creek where it's just normal garden soil and they do well. But then the ones in the creek are also happy. So, or, along the edge of the creek are also happy. So but I would lean more towards things that like wet feet than things that don't, since it does get a torrent and then probably stays wet for several days to a week after that.
And your boat cypress
Mm-hmm.
is definitely in those categories.
Yes.
Can handle all the way.
Yes. It could, I mean, I've seen them basically underwater in the edge of a pond. And, the bald cypress and pond cypress, they're the ones that create the knees. So in like swamp-like conditions, they will send up knees above the water to collect oxygen for the roots. And then, and in the garden situation, they will still do that. So I would use them sparingly and as far away from lawns as possible, because they will start getting nicked by the mower, those little knees that pop up.
Megan, are willows native at all?
No. That would be nice. All right. Any other questions?
Think of it as a leak. Think of it in the car.
Right.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
3:00 in the morning. That's when I always think of things.
Well, you can always feel free to give us a call.
Yeah, absolutely.
Happy to-
And we're here every day of the week, so we're always happy to help and answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for coming out today. Thank you, YouTube. Thanks for watching.